This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and I'm going to provide in this webinar an overview of information helpful to those that have to complete a county budget for fiscal year 24 in the Department of Management's online budget and valuation system. I'm going to provide some general information, some background regarding hospital budgets, levy limits, that sort of thing. And then I'll also provide an overview of the system itself and any particulars regarding fiscal 24. We'll start out first with some general budget information for hospitals. I do want to share the sort of purpose of Department of Management's uh, part in the whole budget system. We provide the forms, including web-based forms. In this case, we provide instructions and technical assistance for local governments that complete budgets. To log into the budget system, as well as to find some useful information regarding our Department of Management online budget system, you would want to bookmark the website listed here. It is Department of Management's what we would call our county hospital resource page. So it's sort of a one-page option for you to go to log into the system and also find helpful information. One of the things that you'll find here is for each and every year, we do a summary of the tax rates and levies in each and every county hospital instance. And we've done this for a number of years, and they're in an Excel spreadsheet format. So if you're looking for some historical data or data regarding other county hospitals, tax rates, that sort of thing for comparison, you can certainly go to this page and download any of those tax rate documents. This is just an example of what one looks like. Again, each and every hospital listed, the different components of their tax levy, total rate, total dollars, and also their valuation is listed. So just a piece of information that you might find helpful as you work through the budget process. So, budget timelines. You are required to publish notice of a public hearing and proposed budget summary not less than 10, no more than 20 days prior to the date of the actual budget hearing itself. So, you hold a local public hearing to hear comments on your budget. Your board would then adopt the budget, and you're required to certify that budget, provide the county auditor with certain documentation of the budget by March 15th. Department of Management that then compiles all the local government budgets and certifies final tax rates back to the county auditor by June 15th. And you would also, as a budget preparer for the county hospital, receive notice of that tax certification. It's basically just a summary for information purposes of your tax rate. We also provide consolidated tax rates by tax district to the counties. The county auditor prepares the tax rates and provides that to the county treasurer by July 1 of each year. And then your county treasurer prepares tax statements for property owners. And of course, those taxes are due September 30 and March 30 of each year. As far as the taxes available or tax rates available to county hospitals, they are listed here with just a general overview, and I'll provide a little bit more information on them. But I did want to include this screen because it provides for you the Iowa Code authorization. So if you have questions regarding any of these particular levies, then you can consult the Iowa Code reference and find more information. So let's start first with the general fund levy. So with the general fund levy, there are a couple different types of hospitals that are out there. Currently, there are about 40 public hospitals, and their general fund is for improvement, maintenance, and replacement of a hospital. If you're a population under 225,000, your rate limit would be 27 cents per thousand. And then at or above 225,000, rate limit would be $2.05. So that would be in particular applicable to Broadlawns in Polk County. There are currently 4 revenue hospitals, with the general fund levy being used for operation, maintenance, and funded depreciation of the hospital, and the rate limit is $1.08. And there is currently 1 memorial hospital in the state, and they have no property tax levy. So that's our general fund. Of course, that's what's used primarily for, operation of the hospital, and is, our most vital levy that folks use. You also have available to you FICA and IPERS funds. For FICA and IPERS, there is no dollar particular rate limit. You can levy the amount necessary, but it is limited in purpose just to pay the employer's share, so the hospital's share of the FICA and IPERS contribution. You can only use if your general fund levy is at its maximum rate. And you do not show expenditures in the FICA and IPERS funds. You receive those property tax revenues into those funds and then transfer to the fund with the salary expenditures. So you'd receive those tax revenues into FICA and IPERS and transfer them out into your general fund. Emergency levy, for an emergency that cannot be financed through the general fund. For more information, it is covered under Code of Iowa 24-6. There is a levy limit of 27 cents per thousand. Now, this is for use of a sort of a fiscal emergency. It's not necessarily an emergency like we're talking about a natural disaster. It's more a fiscal emergency. You have a need for revenue that you can currently not um, cover with your existing resources. So if you were in a situation where you felt you needed the emergency levy, you would actually include the levy within your budget and walk it through the regular budget process, your public hearing, etc. If if your board approved your budget including that levy, you would submit a form. It's a special form 699 along with your budget to the county auditor, and that would be provided to the state appeal board. And then they would have a meeting and determine whether or not they felt it was appropriate for you to include that emergency levy within your budget, so they can sort of vote it up or down. And so the state appeal board, if you're not familiar, is a 3-member body. It is the director of Department of Management, the auditor of state, and the treasurer of state. So just be aware that that's the setup of the state appeal board. And funds, if you actually receive the authority to use the emergency levy, you receive funds, receive that tax revenue into the fund and then transfer it to the general fund to be spent. So receive funds into the emergency fund itself and then transfer them out to the general fund to be spent. You can use also the unemployment compensation levy. There is no particular levy limit, but it is to pay for the cost of unemployment benefits. So either for your cost as an employer to participate in the state system or the cost of unemployment claims after they're filed. Again, no rate limit, the amount necessary, but it is very limited in its purpose. The ambulance levy is a levy available to hospitals. It's for purchasing, leasing, equipping, maintaining, and operating ambulance services. It's only for when such services are not otherwise available. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. If there are other services within your county, then you're likely not going to be able to use the ambulance levy. If you have any questions, you can certainly give me a call and we can talk about it. But you'd want to, you know, investigate your local circumstances if you've not used that ambulance levy before and you're interested in it at this time. The rate limit for the ambulance levy is 27 cents per thousand. You also have available to you a tort liability insurance levy. It's to pay the cost of tort liability judgments or any insurance necessary and prudent to the operation of the hospital. There is no rate limit. It is the amount necessary. Of course, then again, it is limited in purpose to tort liability and insurance costs. Debt service levy is available for payment of qualified outstanding debt. Form 703 in your budget supplemental detail must be completed. That is just the long-term debt schedule page within the budget. There is no rate limit for debt service. It is the amount necessary and, of course, limited in purpose. Typically, hospitals do not levy for general fund debt service. So if you have questions regarding your existing debt, know that this is only available for general obligation debt service. You may want to contact bond counsel if you have any more detailed questions, but currently there are no hospitals levying for debt service. Restricted funds and board designated funds. Many hospitals set aside funds from depreciation, etc., for buildings and improvements. Since all funds must be accounted for, and to distinguish these funds from restricted funds, a board designated fund may be established, and money may be transferred from this fund to other funds by board resolution. So, this is just a way for you to document any of those restricted or board designated funds. I want to take a couple moments to explain a change that you would see within the Department of Management's valuation system. House File 418 passed in the 2021 legislative session, and it eliminated the multi-residential separate class of property beginning with the January 1, 2022 assessments. So the January 1, 2022 assessments are what you will be using as you prepare your fiscal 24 budget. With this change, really the only effect you would see is if you are interested and you typically pull up Department of Management's valuation reports, which those are available to you, just within the Department of Management system under reports, there's a segment called valuation reports, and it's just various reports on property valuation by county or statewide. If you typically pull those reports and you pull reports by class, you would see that in the 2022 valuations, the DOM property class multi-residential has been changed back to a reserved column with that 2022 valuation filing. The properties are now reported within the residential class instead of being reported within this separate class of property called residential. So this is just sort of an FYI if you are interested in looking at those valuation reports as you work on your budget. And this is an example of what one of the reports looks like. It's just, property by class, listing each and every amount of value for this particular tax district. And you see this is a 2021 report and multi-residential is included. If we ran the same report after 2022 valuations are filed, this would be changed back to reserved. So just again, sort of an FYI. Another thing to mention to you is the change to business property tax. Business property tax used to be a credit against levy taxes available to certain commercial, industrial, and railroad property owners that filled out an application for such credit. Now it's no longer a credit, it's actually a two-tier reduction in their property value. So it's a rollback essentially. And because it's no longer a credit but a replacement, we need to budget for it a little bit differently. It's going to need to be budgeted along with commercial and industrial replacement dollars. So this is the first year for this change for fiscal 24. And what I would tell you is that because it is the first year for this switch from a credit to a rollback replacement, it may be a little bit difficult to budget for what that revenue is going to look like. The anticipation is that your loss in revenue due to the rollback will be fully funded, but exactly sort of what that offset amount is is a little bit hard to predict. So if you do budget for the receipt of business property tax replacement in this first year of receipt, I would just say, be conservative as you budget. And commercial and industrial itself as a replacement is being phased out. Commercial and industrial properties do still receive that 90% reduction in their value. And then, of course, they also receive the additional reduction that I just talked about with business property tax. But the commercial and industrial replacement piece that you used to receive from the state is currently being phased out. So we're sort of in year 2 of an 8-year phase out of that replacement. And Department of Management has estimated future C&I replacements throughout the phase out, sort of at each year. This is what we anticipate you would receive. So if you're interested in that information and to help you budget for your fiscal 24 receipt of that CNI replacement, you can go to the website as listed. There's a spreadsheet with future payments in the title. You'd pull that up, you'd look under miscellaneous because that's the general category for the hospitals, and you can see the amounts projected to be received as the phase out occurs. So the budget deadline for your submission of your budget is March 15th of 2023, right in the middle of the week this time. And you do have to provide documentation to your county auditor by their close of business on March 15th. Budget protests are important to note. It is always a possibility that your budget could be protested by your citizens. Protesting a local government budget is covered under Code of Iowa, Section 2427. Persons affected by the proposed budget, expenditure, or tax levy, or by any item within the budget can appeal that budget by circulating and filing a petition, and they file that with with the county auditor of the county in which you're located, right? Their deadline to submit such a petition is March 25th, so essentially 10 days after your budget deadline. Your citizens would have that amount of time to actually submit a petition and protest your budget. The number of signatures needed to submit such a protest is determined based on the amount of folks that voted at the last governor's election. So it's a calculation that your county auditor would need to make to see if the citizens submitted the correct number of signatures. So, assuming that is the case and the petition is valid, your county auditor would forward that protest document to the state appeal board that I discussed a little bit earlier, that 3-member board. So, if that occurs, then the state appeal board would work with staff to schedule a local public hearing on the protest. That again would occur in the county that the protest document has been submitted. It would be an opportunity for both sides of the issue to plead their case and for citizens to speak for or against the budget. And upon receipt of all that information, the state appeal board would review it and issue a final determination on the protest. They can reduce tax levies and reduce expenditures if they see fit. Budget amendments are required for any increase in the total for any of the funds. And keep in mind that that amendment must be effective before any of the expenditure amounts are exceeded. So budget amendments, what we're talking about, of course, is you're within your current year and you find that you need to exceed the total of your expenditures for a particular fund due to circumstances you did not budget for or anticipate. So, in order to do so, you would need to go through an amendment process for the current year budget. It does require the same notice and hearing procedures as required for the adoption of the original budget. And budget amendments are also subject to protest. You can amend up to the end of the fiscal year, but keep in mind that an amendment of a budget when we're into June, may not have the time for the state appeal board to schedule a local hearing and render a decision on that protest before the end of the fiscal year, before June 30th. So therefore, if that's the case, your amendment would be void. The amendment form is found by logging into the same online system that you use to adopt your budget and selecting amend. There's an amend button that you'll see on your current year budget. We did do a webinar on the amendment process, and it's viewable on your hospital resources page that I mentioned earlier. And there are also instructions within the online amendment form itself. So let's switch gears and provide more of a detailed overview or look at the online budget system itself. So the budget system for fiscal year 24 is going to look very similar to prior years if you've completed budgets in the last couple of years. So it would look very similar. There are no major changes. Your login access should also transfer. If you had access for the fiscal 23 budget, it should transfer over to the 24 budget. Please let me know if for some reason it does not. And if you have someone that needs access to the forms that currently does not have it, send me an email. We can provide them with instructions on how to obtain an Enterprise A&A account ID. Once they get an account ID, they can email me and I can give them access to your particular county budget forms. When you're working within the system, if you use a tab key during data entry, it will move between the cells in which you can enter data. You can also use the arrow keys from side to side and up and down. And as you move within a page, the cell that you are in will be highlighted and the row and column show a green highlight. This is just to help you keep oriented within the system as you're working. Ending fund balances are a calculated field and they are produced by subtracting the sum of all the expenditures from the sum of beginning balances and revenues. So when you're ready to work within the system, you'd go again to that Department of Management website page that is your county hospital resources page. You'd select the blue button titled Submit and Amend Budget. And it's going to then ask you to log in over here, top left, and it'll pull up this blue screen where you enter your Enterprise A&A account ID and password. On this home screen, you'll also see the status of valuations by county. So that way you know whether or not your county has went ahead and submitted valuations for the year, for the budget year. You can't, of course, file your budget until valuations are submitted because you need the valuation figures in order to calculate your tax rate. So again, to begin your budget, you log in using the Enterprise A&A account ID, and the screen will look a little bit like this. You will see displayed in the middle the new budget that you're going to be working in, as well as current year budget and any prior years of budgets that are in the system. And again, so to get into the system and work on your new fiscal 24 budget, you'd click Edit. If, as a separate action, you find you need to amend your current year budget, you'd go to your 2023 budget and you'd click the Amend button, which generates a special form for amendment. Budget tabs and pages. Once you're inside the budget, you see the tabs across the top representing the different funds and different pages that must be completed. Data entered on the different tabs and the tax request entered on the adopted budget summary populate and sort of pull over to the public hearing tab and the remainder of the adopted budget summary tab. So again, you enter your revenue and expense detail on the supplementary detail pages, all those different fund tabs, and that will pull over onto our summary tab and our hearing notice tab. And once you're going through your fund tabs, you'll find that within each fund tab are two sub tabs essentially, one for revenue and one for expenditures. So you need to complete both tabs if that's a fund that you will be using. Obviously, if you don't use, say, FICA or IPERS levies and you have nothing in those funds, then you would just pass right over those particular pages. So once the 2022 valuations are filed in your county by your county auditor, their due date is January 1, those valuation figures that you need in your budget will just be automatically populated. Until valuations are filed, or if the county auditor actually unfiles their values, you would see the following yellow notice at the top of your budget forms, and that's just to let you know that, in fact, your valuations could change, or they're not there yet if they're not yet filed, but your valuations aren't done. You can't really proceed with your budget because either your values may change or they just haven't been submitted yet. If you see this notice and you're not exactly sure what's going on, you can certainly contact your county auditor with questions. So on our adopted summary tab, just as an example, what you see is the screen itself. Again, in this instance, the county auditor has filed the values and it's populated into these two columns, both valuation with and without gas and electric. The valuation with gas and electric is used to calculate your property tax rate. And the value without gas and electric just tells you how much actually property tax dollars are being collected or estimated to be collected, and how much utility replacement tax dollars are going to be collected would be the difference of the two. So everything over here obviously is white cells, meaning it's either being pulled from another page or another source, or it's a calculated field in the instance of our tax rates, right? So this is where in the blue cells, you're going to enter your tax request by fund. So you're going to put in here in dollars the amount of utility replacement and property tax that you need to generate for the budget year in those different funds. If you want to include electronic or virtual information on your notice, there is an extra text box on the bottom of the public hearing tab to add that information. So just sort of be aware. Budget actions, once you're in the budget, you can check errors at any time. You can save at any time, which of course we recommend you do often. And you can also print at any time. You can print the full budget at any time. Now also you'll see an option to print just the current page. If you're, just working on the current page and you want to print it out and look at it. Upon proposing your budget for publication, you can also print only the publication notice if you would seek that at a later time. If you're in Google Chrome, you can select your local printer or you can save off to PDF as your destination. So, either printing off a hard copy of your publication notice, or you can save it to your machine and then email it to your newspaper, or, whatever your process is. You cannot publish your budget unless you are error free. And by errors, we mean sort of statutory errors, things like, your tax rate being legal, is your budget fully completed, those types of things. We're obviously not able to verify your exact numbers being correct. So in this case, if we ran an errors check, it's telling you that your general levy must be at maximum before IPERS can be levied. So in this instance, we didn't max out our general levy and tried to use IPERS, which would be contrary to statute and would be an error. What you'd want to see, of course, and what you need to see prior to moving forward with your budget is an error check that is green and error-free, and you can then proceed to propose and publish your budget and obtain that public hearing notice that you need. So you would click Propose Published, and you'll get a screen to enter the date, time, and place for the hearing notice for that budget hearing. There is quite a bit of room in our meeting location box here. So as another option, this could be where you would put your virtual meeting information if you have, an option for that you want to let people know. Like I said, quite a bit of space, but maybe it, depending on your information, may or may not be enough if you choose to use it. So you click Propose, and the system again generates a notice that you can print or save to your system. It can also go back at any time after proposing to get that publication notice. Following the public hearing, your board can make allowable revisions, which are decreasing the tax asking or decreasing an expenditure. You can never go higher than what you published in tax asking or expenditures, but you can go lower. And so if they do choose to make some reductions, you would return your budget to draft, which basically just opens it up for edits. You would make those changes and save. The budget is again proposed published, but you just leave the original date in there. You're not republishing a decrease. So at that point, then you'd be ready to adopt. Of course, if there were no revisions, then you can just go in and adopt, and you would enter your adoption date and click the adopt button. You would file with your county auditor by March 15th, close of their business, the proof of publication for your budget. So the proof of publication you've received from your newspaper. And you'd also provide to your county auditor the signed adopted budget and supplementary pages. So you'd want to deliver those to the county auditor by their close of business, March 15th. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to contact me. My phone number is listed here as well as my email, and I'm happy to provide assistance as I can. Thank you.